My name is Justin, and I am an addict. I have been actively working the steps in the rooms of recovery since September of 2013 and am grateful to be sober one day at a time, thanks to my God, the steps, and the fellowship of other addicts. RICO 12 is an organization with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. Speakers from our past meetings have represented many fellowships and identify with addictions with such variety as alcoholism, drugs, food, sex, gambling, theft, just to name a few. Each Friday at noon Central Time, we hold a live lunch hour speaker meeting with a recovering addict from anywhere on earth, pertaining to any or no faith tradition and with any background who shares their experience, strength, and hope on a specified recovery topic of their choice. For the 12-week period that we started several weeks ago, almost 2 months ago now, on March 4th, through May 20th of 2022, we are focusing on each of the 12 steps of recovery. Our speaker today will share for about 20 to 25 minutes on her experience with step 8. And then the live audience gets the opportunity to ask questions of her for another 20 to 25 minutes. To get weekly invitations to join us in future meetings, please go to rico12.com/join us and submit your email address there to get the reminders and links. And I'll put that link in the chat here in a little bit. Donations and podcast ratings and reviews are greatly appreciated, and details on doing that will also be in the chat of the live meeting and in the show notes of the podcast. If you are listening and feel that RICO 12 is of value, please take a minute and rate and review the podcast in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It's a great way to help get the message out to more of us who suffer and who are seeking additional tools for recovery. We look forward each week to receiving the light reflected from our speakers. That light inspires hope, meaning, worth, and growth in us, the listening audience. Now, a quick disclaimer. While we hope that these episodes on the 12 steps of recovery are helpful to both sponsors and sponsees alike, this 12-week series of episodes are not intended to replace the necessity of working with a sponsor through the steps. We will not be working the steps in these meetings. They are meant only to be a supplement and informative reference on what the steps mean and why they are important to the individual speaking about them. Now, step 8, like I said, we will be hearing from Debbie B. about step 8 today, and it reads, quote, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Now, here's a little bit about Debbie in her own words. She says, my name is Debbie, and I am an alcoholic. I found recovery on April 13th, 2007, and have stayed since then, one day at a time. I work with many women in the program, as well as my sponsor. I do service work and lots of meetings. I always try to stay in the middle, and she's so very grateful to so many people. She loves AA and hopes that we all choose to stay in recovery. Debbie, the floor is yours. Take it away. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you for asking me to be here today. And yes, I am Debbie, and I am an alcoholic. I've never done a podcast before. I've never done anything live like this before. And audience and Justin, I am a little bit nervous, but I am here to share my experience, strength, and hope with each and every one of you. And like I said, I hope you just stay. Yes, I just celebrated my 15th birthday, April 13th. And I say that because there is hope. And I stayed in the meeting and I reached out to others. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself and try to stay really focused because I am nervous, and that's the truth. I am Debbie. I'm an alcoholic, and I started drinking early in life. I'm going to say maybe 13 years old. I had a wonderful, wonderful mom and dad, an amazing brother. I was born in 1960. And, that's what I did. And then high school started, and I was that girl that went to the parties, the Kager parties on Friday after football games. I had a wonderful group of friends. I never understood, still don't. A little bit of wine or a little bit of beer from the keg, and I couldn't walk away from it. But I never thought about having a problem with that. I drove and I drank. I drove with my friends. That's what I did. And by the grace of God, back then I didn't get caught. Maybe I should have. I'm sure I should have. As time went on, I got married, or I had jobs. And again, party. That's all I did. So I married that high school boy, the boy down the street. We got married in, I think it was 1984. And we're still married today, almost 35 years later. I don't know why he stayed with me. He doesn't drink. He was a normie and he hasn't drank for years. But I did, and I caused havoc. 1988, we had our son. My son's name is Shane. And I didn't drink during my pregnancy, but as soon as that was all over with, and we moved to a small town in California called Casadera in Sonoma County, the town was so small, and all the women just drank. We just drank. That's all we did. And, I was that mom, but I did all the drinking. And so Shane started school, and boy, that was a disaster. And it was a little small school. And, as time went on, every September I was going to say, I said to myself, I'm going to stop so I can be sober for Shane in school. And that never happened. That happened when he was a senior. I went to school functions, like PTA things. I did the dances. I went to all his football games. He was a fabulous football player. And how did I do that? I put the beer in my purse. I never left home without it. Did I think anybody didn't know? I'm sure everybody did know, but I thought different. I call myself, I was a tornado. I just whirlwind through everybody's lives. I ruined your holidays, your Christmas, your Thanksgivings. I ruined just a simple barbecue. It was endless, everything I did. And, through my mom and dad, my brother, my family, my friends, everybody, that's all I ever did was drank. As time went on, like I said, I just drank. I got drunk, and I did it again. Time went on, and living in Sonoma County, if you're familiar with Sonoma County, it's a beautiful wine country. And I had many, many jobs at wineries. So I didn't have to buy that cheap bottle of wine because I got 70% off that fine wine. So that's where that happened. So time went on, and we finally moved from that town, and we moved to another town in California until our home was ready here in Oregon. And that was just huge, the drinking that went on in those days. And so I decided one time to drive up to Oregon and to get sober, because I did that a lot too. Should add that in the back. I always ran away from home, and didn't tell anybody where I would go. And, back then there was no cell phones, no tracking devices. So I came up here, and on my way, I got a DUI. I got a DUI in Doris. Don't even know where that is. I went to jail. I got out. That was another story, just getting my truck back. And I came up here, like I said, to get sober. What do alcoholics do? Well, for me, I drank, and I drank, and I drank, and I drank. Well, I finally went back home. And shortly after that, within maybe 2 or 3 days, my brother kind of rescued me for that moment. And I'm leaving out a lot of the story, people. You could just imagine just the tornado. It was horrible. So my brother, he took me to a detox center. He said, either you can get out of my car, up this windy mountain at 2 a.m. in the morning, or we're going to go. Well, I just stayed. I stayed in the car. He took me to detox, which took me to Campobello Treatment Center in Sonoma County. And when I got there, I stayed. It was a 30-day program, and I stayed. And there was the first time I learned how not to drink, one day at a time. They held meetings. I went to group. I did all of that. I got my sponsor there. And, I graduated. I stayed because, I really didn't have anywhere to go. No one was going to come get me. So I stayed sober. And then that time we did move to Oregon. We moved to Oregon, and I didn't have a license. I couldn't help drive. I couldn't help, bring loads up here to the new house and this and that. So when we got here, I had to do a lot of group, because of my DUI. I had to do all this stuff. And again, I did all that, and I graduated. In the meantime, I did go to meetings, but I stayed in the back of the room because I didn't want to get to know these people. I can't say I didn't like it, but because I just plain don't remember, So I stayed sober for about a year and a half. And there it went. 7-8 months of in and out of the program, in and out of sober living houses, in and out of my best friend's house, my brother's house, back and forth on airplanes. It was just horrible. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. It was just absolutely devastating. And the pain that went through my family's, what I did to them, which I didn't think I was hurting. I'm the one that was drinking, so be it. But later on, I learned how I did hurt them. And yes, people, I do cry a lot. That's who I'm very emotional about this program. So finally I ended up back at home. And I'm going to say it was either the 12th or the 13th, and it really doesn't matter today what day it was. My husband came upstairs to me, and I was laying in the bed, and he goes, I'm taking you to that meeting in Eagle Point, which is in Oregon here. And you're going to that meeting, and those people are going to help you. Well, you can imagine what I told my husband. It wasn't hot dang, let's go. It was not that at all. But somehow, some reason, I got up and got ready to go. Today, I see that was my higher power working in my life. And he took me, and I went, and I stayed. I got that sponsor. I listened to my first sponsor who said, get someone there that you can go to meetings with, that you can touch, that you can see, that you can talk to face, not on a phone. Sharon was easy. She was in California. So I found this wonderful woman, Donna. And, I worked all the time. And this time I worked at a grocery store. And where I live, everything's about 30, 40 minutes from me. So I'd go back and forth, and I'd get home from work and, I'm tired. And I'd call her and say, I don't think I'm going to go tonight. And she would say to me, okay, well, you sure had time to go out and drink, didn't you? You would have time to go get that bottle, didn't you? And put it in the bottles. I would empty the water out and put the wine in. That's all I ever did. And, fine, I'll go. And I went. And I went, and I went, and I went. During that time, my son became a heroin addict. He got into his own addiction. And I was telling Justin this at the beginning of before we started the podcast. And the harassment, the stalking, the tracking me down, the chasing me down, it was just so much. I put him in jail, I don't know how many times. And the reason I'm telling you all this is because it was the people in the program, my best friends. And, they're not in the program, but they support me 100%. And Connie, if you're listening, it's you, because she stayed beside me every step of the way. My brother did. Sorry. And I stayed sober. I stayed sober one day at a time. They surrounded me. People called me every day. They texted me. And again, I would run away just to be safe for a while. And then I'd come back and it would start all over again. So he got out of prison. He went to 45 times at least in jail. And then he did a year in prison. And then one day, and I'm, of course, leaving out so much. He said to me, take me to that ARC place and so forth. He goes, I'm going to go. I just laughed. Well, people, he went to detox. He went to the ARC treatment center. He went to the Oxford House. Today, he has over 2.5 years of sobriety. Again, right on, Justin. Again, it's a miracle. It's God. It's the support that we give each other through hard times, through good times. Doesn't matter if it's a death. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter what the situation is, because we can drink no matter what. A happy wedding. No, there's nothing better than good champagne, or a sad death. We can drink no matter what, because for me, I'm an alcoholic. My life is good today. My life is good today. I went through a lot during my 15 years. I'm going to say maybe 13 and a half. The last few years have been pretty good. I don't work anymore. My son is wonderful. I still have that group of friends that I've had all through my sobriety and before then who saw me go through all this. But the reason, again, is because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for me. It's that I was willing to go to the meetings. I do so many meetings. I do Zoom meetings all the time. I'm a GSR for my women's group. I do events because this is where I need to be, right smack dab in the middle. And that's what my prayer for you is today, all of you, to stay in the middle. It does get hard. It is hard. But trust me, as time goes on, it gets better and better and better. Justin asked me to talk about step 8. And now that I've told you a lot about myself, I'm going to tell you how I feel about step 8. But I'm going to start by reading step 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 8 and 9 are concerned with the personal relationships first. We take a look backwards and try to discover where we have been at fault. Next, we make a vigorous attempt to repair the damage we have done. And third, having thus cleaned up the debris of the past, we consider how our newfounded knowledge of ourselves. We may develop the best possibility relations with every human being we know. So I made my list. I made my list and I started it with my son because I feel he was the one I did the most damage to at the beginning through all his childhood. And I told him I was sorry. And whether he understood it or not completely at that time in his addiction, or maybe it was a day of sobriety, or he wasn't using that day, shouldn't have used sobriety. I don't know, but it was okay. And then I went to my husband and like I said, I wrote this list and we talked about it and it was okay today. Then I went to that best friend and I told her how sorry I was that I drove her vehicles and I drank in her home with my goddaughter and her stepson and her husband, because that's what I did. That's what I did. I used any excuse. And then I had to go to my brother and my niece because that's all I ever did. And I had to apologize to them. And by the grace of God, they said, thank you. And they always supported me. So for that step, it was fairly easy for me. And I'm so grateful. But I had to do the living amends. Every day I stay sober. I'm showing them that I mean it. I full-heartedly mean this. I full-heartedly respect them. I respect me. I respect the program. I talked at the beginning about my mom and dad. Well, they've passed away. When my dad passed away, I was not drinking. No program. I just wasn't drinking. My dad was my hero. My dad was my everything. My mom was huge. Oh my God, I had the best mom and dad. And then I have an aunt and uncle, and they were a huge part of my life. And of course, they all saw me drunk, every wedding, every event, everything. So what I do to them today is they're in San Rafael. They're, at the cemetery, and they're in a niche. And every year when I go back to visit, I go to that niche and I pull out the old coin and I put the new coin in each side. And I tell them that life is good today. And again, I tell them I'm sorry. But that's how I make amends to people that are not here anymore, that can't actually see me and walk with me. It's very, very important to me. And I've heard it so many times. People go to that length for people that are, not with us anymore. So, people, I just, sometimes it's hard. And when I talked about it at the beginning, going through, when you make those amends, it doesn't just snap your fingers and it's all better. It takes time, and it took years. And I would get really angry. And I was always talking to my sponsor about it. Don't they know? Don't they know I didn't go get alcohol? Why don't they know? Well, I had to show them one day at a time because I had to earn their trust again, that I can leave my purse anywhere I go, my car unlocked, whatever the case may be. There's no alcohol to be found. I'm so grateful that I have all these people still in my world today. And again, I work the program. I do the Zooms. I go to in-person now. I work with a sponsor, Justin, somebody that I have never met, and a friend of his who I've never met. But this is how the program works. One alcoholic reaching out for another. Again, Justin, thank you. And this was so huge for me. But my point is, I don't turn down somebody just because I'm nervous. I do it because I've been asked to do it. And I've been asked to share my experience, strength, and hope. And I'm so grateful that I met you, Justin. And thank you so very much. And, like I could go on, but that's really it, folks. Just stay in the middle of the program. Get the program under your belt because life does get better one day at a time. Thank you, everyone. I'm Debbie. I'm an alcoholic.
Oh, thank you so much, Debbie. I really appreciate your story, your experience, strength, and hope that you shared with us there. We're going to transition into the Q&A portion of the meeting. If any in our live audience have questions for Debbie, please type them in the Q&A link at the bottom of your Zoom window. Looks like two speech bubbles over the top of each other. I will get to those. I've also written down a few questions here that we'll be using to ask Debbie based on her share. But any questions you have regarding that's related to step 8 or any of the steps that we've discussed up to this point that she's worked, we welcome those questions. Debbie, I'm really grateful for your share once again. And I want to start off with something that you brought up early in your share that really rang true to me and made me reflect back on my own walk in active addiction, and then in my own walk through the steps up to step 8 even. You mentioned we think that others don't know, but they probably do. We've harmed them in some way through those things that we think they don't know about. How does that concept affect the building of a list of step 8 of people that we need to become willing to make amends to?
To answer that question, oh boy. I'll just use my husband. I hope I'm answering it right. He knew I was drunk. Of course he knew. But I had it convinced in my head that he didn't know. And he didn't know I was hiding them. And he didn't know I was, going grocery shopping with a bottle of white Zin, in my water bottle. How did I come home so drunk when I left sober? Or I'd end up at my girlfriend's house, my brother's house, whatever. And how did they not know every time I went to the restroom? I had my purse. Who takes the purse with them every time at your friend's house? So I played a game with myself. They didn't know. They never knew that I went into the convenience store and came back and my purse was all filled up again. So I hope that's answering your question. I mean, people that aren't like us, me, they just, oh my, that's crazy. But to me, that's how I lived because I didn't know how not to.
Yeah, I totally identify with that too. I mean, in my addiction, I lived my life thinking, oh, nobody knows. And if they did know, I would be hated and reviled and cast out and nobody would love me. But my experience as I came clean and worked step 8 and then step 9 of making the amends was completely opposite. I only had I think 1 or 2 people that were like, get out of my face. I don't want to see you again.
Yeah.
What were your experiences with that, where you thought maybe some way you had harmed somebody if they ever knew about it, or when you came clean that they would reject you? Did you have any that they just embraced you and said, oh, I love you, I'm so happy for you?
Justin, thanks for asking that because I did write it in my notes and I just couldn't focus on, anyways. For me, everyone did, I was very grateful. But again, there are people that have gone and made amends and they are not forgiven. My experience on that, and that's what I would tell someone else, your side of the street is clean. You said you were sorry. You didn't mean to because I didn't really steal from them. I never really went into anybody's purse or wallet and take money. But what I did, I stole their time. I stole their Christmas, their football game, whatever it was, that's what I stole. But again, to go and say, I'm sorry, this is what I did, and I'm not doing that today. And they said, get out of here. I did what I did. I did the best that I could. I did what was suggested to me.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right. A reminder, if you in the live audience have a question for Debbie, type it in the Q&A link at the bottom of your window, and we'll get to that. Another question I have for you. You talked about when you first went into the rooms of recovery, or at a time that you went back to the rooms of recovery, you hung in the back of the room. You wanted to kind of be invisible and not be in the middle of the herd like you talk about. How is that concept of not being all in, of not being in the middle, how does that help in preparation for taking step 8 and being willing to engage with others? I mean, I don't want to be in the back of the room. I need to be involved. So tell me a little bit more about that.
I found I went to a lot of women's meetings. So the women, they kind of pulled me in, and my personality is very outgoing. I'm very social. But when I don't want to be heard or really noticed, I can really be quiet and shut down. So I want to say that the women in the meetings, the people in the meetings, they pulled me in, and that's how I stayed. And that's when I started being willing to listen and to hear what they were saying to me. And, those times when it was really hard for me, and there was a lot of those years. And at least I went to the meetings. I may not have heard them, but I went to the meetings. So I'm not sure if that's answering it, but it's really the people. And here in my valley, you come on my Zoom meeting, whether, I have one at noon today and it's open to men and women. Boy, howdy. It's all about, well, Justin, how are you? Where you, that's how we do. We're very, I call us cheerleaders, because we want to cheer that person on. And boy, if you're a newcomer, and they want to feel welcome, and we hope they want to come back because they feel that, and it's sincere, it's real. And that's when I started being willing to start doing the steps and looking at myself and my part in all of this and what I did and the destruction.
Yeah, that really connects with me. I remember going into my first meeting, I sat in the back, and as soon as, amen was said at the end of that closing, that prayer, I was out of there so fast. I didn't want any part of anybody. And I've shared this before, but I'm going to share it again. Thank God there was a man there named Benjamin, who's still my hero, who chased me out that door, grabbed me and said, Justin, you are in the right place. I will see you again next week. And my thought was initially, no, you won't. And then as that week went on, it just ate at me. Well, I better go back. The expectation is there. And it just changed everything to continue going back. All right. We have a question from our live audience. Roz asks, what did it take for you to start loving yourself and letting yourself be more self-caring?
Hi, Roz. Thank you for the question. I learned I needed to be kind to myself. I needed to give myself a break. And that took time, and that took people reminding me of that. Even though I may have done things and I thought I was taking care of myself, in fact, I was not. I just consumed all this alcohol, so I wasn't eating properly. And when I did eat, it was slammed down with alcohol. But I had to be kind, and I had to learn how to do that. And I had to learn how to relax and take everything in. And again, when you're new at the beginning, this all takes time. But eventually, and I have a couple really great phrases that I love, and one day at a time is one of them, because I look back, I don't know how I got here today. I don't know how I care about myself today, but I do, because I want to help someone else. So I have to take care of myself so I can give to others, and I can receive help. And I got a lot of help. And again, it's just learning how to do these things, because it does take time. It takes time, but always give yourself that break.
Love that. And thank you for sharing that journey there. And I still, there are days when I struggle with that self love, that embracing myself for who I am, strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but having the concept to me of being right sized, knowing that, I'm not as bad as I think I am, but I'm not as good as I think I am either.
Yeah.
God sees me as I am and he loves me perfectly. That's how I go. And if he loves me and I've received confirmation of that, then I need to accept myself and love myself. So very good. All right. I've got another question for you here, Debbie. The state, or the word for me, the key word in the step 8 is willing. Become willing to make amends with them all. What is the difference between being willing to do something and doing it beside just because, or not doing it because I'm not willing? How do I become willing, and why is it important to be willing there?
Oh boy, willing was huge for me. The willingness to go to any lengths to get my sobriety, to keep my sobriety. And I always share this, and it's really silly. I have the word willingness tattooed around my ankle. That was the first thing I learned in the program. That was the first thing. It's the willingness to be willing. I'm willing to go to a meeting. I don't have to be here today. I don't have to be here at that Zoom at noon, and then get a message from Mr. Terry. Well, where were you? What the heck? Where were you today? And he's joking, of course. But it's like, I'm willing to go, and then even when I had my job, when I worked at Ray's Market here, I didn't have to go to work. I got to go to work. I got to fry that chicken, and I got to do that bread, and I got to do all that stuff. And it's just willing to enjoy your life, the willingness to go to any lengths to have a good life. Just because I don't use that word. Oh, just because I have to, pay the rent or I have to pay the power bill. I get to today. I get to do these things, and how grateful, that I'm not out there because, my husband has always provided, and I would take that power bill money or whatever. And trust me, I'd go buy beer or fine wine instead. And so it would roll over. Today I'm willing to pay that power bill because I have the money to do so.
I love that. And, sometimes I see the word willing as almost a white knuckle word. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to stay sober. And it's almost a white knuckle word rather than how you just explained it as I'm willing to do this. I get to do this. I get to stay sober. And in order to stay sober, in order for the lights to stay on, I get to pay the power bill. In order for me to stay sober, I get to do these things. Can you please walk through some of those things that you do on a regular basis, if not daily basis, in order to ensure that you're willing to do in order to ensure that you stay sober?
Okay. Well, first of all, I get up and get that cup of coffee because I get to do that today. And that's a good thing because I feel sorry for everybody that I talk to if I didn't. I'm only kidding. But today, what do? Okay, I start my day just probably like anybody else. I walk my dogs. I live in the country. I live here in Trail, Oregon. And so when I walk my dogs, for instance, that's my meditation. That's my time to tell God, thank you. Say hi to my mom and dad when you see them. I thank them for my sobriety. I thank them for all of our sobriety. I'm grateful for that. Usually around that time, I'm also talking to a couple friends, and then bam, there's my sponsee. And, when I say I work with a lot of women, I text a lot. We communicate a lot. I do have just one sponsee, and that is fine. And she's newly in the program, and bam, there she is. Can we talk now? Because we always make sure we're not busy cooking or something, or driving. So yeah, sure, call. So there we go. Good hour on the phone. Okay, then we make a plan. Maybe next Tuesday, I'll pick you up. We'll go to an in-person meeting. And my day is basically like anybody else's. I go to Walmart, I go shopping, or I stay home, and I again walk the dogs, and I cook dinner, and I craft stuff, and then around 5:30, I get ready for another Zoom meeting. because that's what I do. I secretary, for instance, a meeting on Monday nights, a women's group. And so I sit down about an hour and a half before and I send out about a bunch of messages. Don't forget Zoom tonight, and I do these things because I want more people to come. Tell your friends, have us join in, So that's how I do my day. And it's all wrapped around Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't remember really a time with my two friends that aren't in the program that I don't talk about us, not by name or anything like that, but, oh yeah, I got to do a Zoom, or me and my friend are going to go to a meeting. So it's a topic. It's it's pouring rain outside. It's a topic. Alcoholics Anonymous is my life. Another thing, Justin, at the last question, I wanted to say something. I go to any lengths for my sobriety. When the COVID first hit a couple years ago, oh my God, no meetings? What the heck? Well, I have a friend and now she's my sponsor, and she sent me an email about Zoom. I don't know anything about computers. I know really little. I can text and Facebook. I was able to get on that Zoom, and that's what I do because I will go to any lengths for my sobriety. So I wanted to fill that in from the question before. It's very important, people. We need to stay, and we need to lead by example so others may follow, hopefully.
I agree. When COVID hit, I was an in-person meeting only guy. And when those meetings got shut down, I thought, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And gratefully, a couple of my sponsees were like, and had been for a while, hey, you got to get in on this Zoom meeting. These are your people here. And I was like, that's not the same thing. But man, it has saved me. And it's actually been a massive blessing. COVID for my recovery has been a huge blessing. It was a mess for a whole lot of other places, but for my own recovery, man,
me too.
What a beautiful thing. Willing to do whatever it takes. Thank you for sharing that. All right, we have another question. This comes in from an anonymous attendee. They ask, what if there is something you cannot share with a loved one that you need to make amends for because it may cause them harm? How would you make amends to that person without the words? And that's a tricky one. It's a step 9 concept, but yeah, let's jump into that. Tell me what your thoughts are on that.
If there's something that you just can't share with somebody or that one person, and these are just suggestions. These are just what I feel. I sure would talk to my sponsor about it in depth. I don't do much without running it by my sponsor. That doesn't mean going to the grocery store. I mean, real life things. And we're in touch, frequently. And then we're always on a Zoom. But, and again, I think I said it at the beginning. I forgot the words. Oh my gosh. You have to show them that you're doing the meetings, you're doing your program, you're working the steps. I apologize. I just totally blanked that out. But, you just have to show them. You have to show them a different way of life, and you're not doing that one thing or two things ever again. And but again, always talk to your sponsor about that or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was going to chime in and follow up on that with the same very similar thing. When I work with sponsees who are preparing to do a very sensitive, potentially harmful amends, I say, do not talk to that person until we have gone over this. Let's write this out, go over it 5 or 6 or more times together so that you have it down. And even when you approach them, take the written thing and say, hey, I need to make amends with you, but I need to read this, But yeah, definitely work with your sponsor on that. Somebody who is also insane, just like I am, but who can see me more clearly than I can see myself. Very good.
And those words were living amends.
Yes.
I wrote it down so I won't forget. Oh my gosh, living amends.
Yep. Awesome. Very good. So if there are any other questions from the live audience, please type them in the Zoom window there. Debbie, if you don't mind sharing a few words of wisdom you have for us before we start closing out this meeting. Give us some words of wisdom that are helpful.
And I wrote that down because I heard you ask that question last week. Never give up hope. Never. That doesn't mean you have to, sometimes you have to walk away from it, and you have to have other people carry you for it. And I talk about, those times when my son was out there drugging. I couldn't have hope anymore. It was gone. So my friends and the women in the program, and yes, there's a few men that know me quite well, and they would carry that for me. And the freedom of recovery that you will find, it just is such a blessing. There's no words for it. I can go and do anything today, and I'm not drinking. I can be called at the last minute to do something, go somewhere, and I'm responsible today. I can commit to that, where before I would not. But my main thing is never give up hope. Never give up hope. So thanks, Justin.
Thank you so much, Debbie. I love your words of wisdom there. Very, very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the great RICO 12 weekly speaker meeting for all addicts and those wanting to learn more about addiction and the recovery therefrom. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have other questions, please go to rico12.com/forum and join in our community and ask those questions and answer others' questions that may come up. I invite the audience to come back next week. And if you have not yet rated or reviewed the podcast on Apple Podcasts, please go do so now. I know I'm begging. I sound like I'm begging with that, but it really does help get the message out to more of us who really need additional tools, additional encouragement, additional lights of hope, like what Debbie shared with us here. Next week, we will be doing things just a little bit differently, as our guest speakers from Israel, and our normal Friday at noon here is Sabbath there in Israel. So we will be recording on Wednesday at noon Central Time on April 27th, and that's for Step 9. And this guest speaker is one that I have heard speak several times on different podcasts and in different places. And I've been trying to get him as a speaker for a long time. I'm really excited to have Daniel T. to come be our speaker. He's a great speaker with some great experiences, strength, and hope to share. And he's excited to share his Step 9 experience. And it should be a great meeting. And I look forward to seeing you all back here then. Now, we're going to launch into the rest of our day with Debbie reading A Vision for You, and then the Serenity Prayer that we'll close out with. Debbie, go ahead and take that away.
Thank you. Again, Justin, I want to say thank you for having me today. Thank you, everyone. I'm Debbie. I'm an alcoholic. Our book is to be suggested only. We realize we know only a little. God will constitutionally disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is a great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away any wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road to happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you till then. Okay. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen. Thank you so much, Debbie. Everybody, come trudge this happy road with me and with Debbie. It is worth it, and you are worth it.
Right on.
Standing still a moment, carving out this time, reflecting on the landscape of this life of mine. Peaks too high to conquer, streams too wide to cross, troughs too deep to walk through without incurring loss. Yet here I am, still standing tall, despite the rough terrain. One like me survived the storms and walked through wind and rain. Still standing, I will fight the good fight, still searching for glimmers of light, feet still on the ground. I can still be found, standing still.
My wings are torn and tattered, but I know I still can fly. I may not soar unfettered, I may not rise too high.
Recorded in the book of life and bind it with the seal